Lord, Lord, Lord. Well, it ain't nobody's business. Yeah, yeah, mama, what we do. If me and my baby fuss and fight, and the next minute we alright. While it ain't nobody's business now. Yeah, yeah, yes, if we do. Oh, yeah. Now, if we go to church all day Sunday, beside the cabaret all day Monday, yeah. Well, it ain't nobody's business now. Ooh, oh, yeah, yes, Lord, if we do. I just might make me a notion. I'm gonna go right down, jump in the ocean. Well, it ain't nobody's business. Yes, yes, if I do. One day we have ham and bacon, and the next day ain't a darn thing shaking. Well, it ain't nobody's business. Yes, I'm 3 times 7. Oh, yes. Now that makes 21. Well, it ain't nobody's business. Ooh, yeah, mama, what we do. Well, it ain't nobody's business. Yeah, yeah, mama, what we do. Baby with the black dress. Oh.
Well, that was Ain't Nobody's Business by Jane McShane. And I played that deliberately because I think it chimes in very much with the whole essence of where we are this week, really. It is ultimately breaks down to it's nobody's business. So without any further ado, how are we doing tonight, Brady, my man? Can you hear me, Brady? Well, okay. While I'm waiting for Brady to see if he can contact me, as we can as tonight's title is given, this is Brexit, really, and there's been much spoken and much deliberation on this whole subject of Brexit, and I've been asked many times this week to sort of speak upon this subject. So I really I'm sure a lot of this will be open to questions, and I'm sure Brady had many questions. So I really want to sort of overlay really the facts of where we are. I mean, the UK last Thursday decided by a percentage of 52 to 48 in the referendum with the decision, do we leave the EU, which is the European Union, and they left by 52 to 48% to vote to leave. This is basically a whole separation of us from the institution of the European Union. That was decided. Now, the events of that, you'd think it'd be, which it was a straight yes and no vote. The answers were given. The establishment in general, this is just an overview, the establishment in general, the politicians, the media, were basically in the Remain camp. I mean, if you take it a step back, it's very obvious that even the whole idea of a referendum was to basically make sure that it was going to be won, just like with any referendum, that it's done by the establishment to know that they're going to win the event. So the run up to it was all completely, the establishment generally were in favour of Remain, and the other side were Leave, were generally painted as kind of people who, and it's it's basically there's an element of truth, and it was basically it's all about immigration, and then it just divided upon those lines. Now since the vote, many things have happened since, and I think it's been real reflection of where we in this part of Europe stand. And I've been saying this for a long time, and I know a lot of people don't have many understandings of it or many interest in it, but this is a day-to-day reality over in this part of the world. So like I said, there's been many things said about it since, but in general, the principle was that 52% to 48% voted to leave the European Union as it was. And since then, like I said, many things have been spoken, but that's as a general overview. And that's something, I mean, just as a general history of it, we've been in the EU since 1973. We went to a referendum in 74, which was voted in. And since then, I mean, as long as I've been alive, there's always been a kind of current, and that's been up and down at certain points in history, to whether we stay inside the European Union or not. So that's just a general overview. So I'm sure, Brady, you have many questions for me. So without any further ado, hello to you, Brady.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm kind of curious your perspective, because I don't know about the entire situation, and I know, like any political situation, it's more complicated than anyone ever wants to try and make it out to be, especially if you're looking at it from an outside perspective. So I would love to kind of pick your brain, see your perspective on things, and where you think things are headed. I know I've heard about Scotland wanting to actually separate from the UK and wanting a separate referendum there, but that's all here stuff. I would love your opinion on that specifically.
What, particularly about Scotland? I mean, well, Scotland was given a referendum a couple of years ago on whether they wanted to succeed from the United Kingdom as it was. Now that vote, again, the interesting thing from just a pure perspective of time and history was that exactly the same as it was labelled over here, Project Fear, which is the Remain camp, was exactly the same tactics they used 2 years ago to basically against the Scots to remain in the United Kingdom. It was all about, if you leave the United Kingdom, where you can be left, you can all the same Project Fear, and then 2 years on the same thing. Now, 2 years ago, as we know, I mean, it was quite a sort of, in that sense, to vote for the Scots to remain inside the United Kingdom, and that was a deeper one. That's a deeper historical question about how the Scots feel about the United Kingdom and that. But equally, I mean, the dual side of that is one of the things that is spoken about many times when I speak to many people around here. When I bump into people, and they say, really, it's like Scotland was one of the, I think it's the second nation, or maybe the only nation that's ever been offered a vote to leave and said no. So it's kind of really all the whole thing about Scotland, the brave, and the flower of Scotland stuff. And people were like, "Really? I mean, we were offered a vote and we didn't say yes." So, but that's down to that. And obviously, in the referendum itself, again, since that moment, I mean, this is when you get into sort of like the micro sort of politics of the United Kingdom. When the referendum happened, Scotland remained in, but equally. The election that was held soon after was the Scottish National Party, the SNP. They basically obliterated the Labour Party, which is your equivalent of the Democratic Party. They just wiped them out of Scotland completely. They were gone. So you've had this nationalist, the SNP, the Scottish Nationalist Party, in power, but they have very much ties into, particularly her, Nicola Sturgeon. She has very much an essence into the EU itself. I mean, a lot of her subsidies. This is this whole bigger thing about the EU as itself as an institution. Is this big central power that gives out a lot of resources to certain parts of countries and regions, and obviously those regions who are dependent on that, especially government officials and people running the public sector, are obviously very pro it. So over here in Scotland, we had this very much Scots wanted to stay in the vote. They wanted to remain in, but they had that really dichotomy of they wanted to be out. So this is a strange thing now. You have many Scots now who kind of like, they have no kind of joy to basically, I think, be part of the EU, but they don't want to be kind of left alone. This is the same thing, because this general fear, which is this general tactics you're seeing, I think, used all over the world, especially in your part of the world, is a Project Fear. And many people have the idea that, if they leave the United Kingdom and they go, or they leave, to go off by themselves, they're going to be washed and marooned and all the rest of it. And that's why they want to stay in the Union. It's like kind of staying under the umbrella of the friendly kind of big power. But this is where I think really we're at this crux moment, and I think this is where we are generally in this moment of time in history. Is never before. If this has happened maybe 10, 15, just 5 years ago, it would have been different. But right now, and I think this is a really unique perspective that maybe some of us have, is that I see it as like, people, you can separate yourselves, great, and that's great. That's self-sovereignty. I get that, because the Scots are, they're, as a tribe of people, very much different from the English, and that's a very big, I know we're on a rock generally, but there's a different tribal feel. But they can have this now, at this time we are right now, especially over the next 2 or 3 years, how long it's going to take to actually do the paperwork to get us out of the European Union. There's a possibility and the almost inevitability that cryptocurrencies are going to rise. So over here they've got Scotcoin. So then you can really offer sovereign nations ability to go, okay, this is the first step into this new world where you can separate yourselves, become completely sovereign, and have your own currency. Whereas before, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that was all dependent on how much money you had and how much gold reserves you had and the old world of sort of seeing things. Whereas now there's these new possibilities opening. But what you're seeing generally, and I think this is just the general overview of what we've seen in the Brexit overview, is you've got this two, I think, general momentums going on at the world at the moment. There's a lot of people wanting to break down and dissolve and see power down to its smallest element, and then you've got the other side that is much more keeping power as it is, and in fact let's conciliate power, let's make it more stronger, let's build more armies and more of this and more of this. And what you're seeing as the result of this, and this is one of the things that's happened in the last 10-15 years over here, is because every argument has been pushed under the radar. So any argument about how people feel, this is one of the things that happened in the Leave vote. I mean, since, and particularly has been the whole narrative has been pushed towards this, but a lot of the Leave campaign, as I sort of hinted upon, was all about the immigration and how many people were saying, oh, and that all got pushed into, you can't speak about that because it's racist. Now, this has been a deliberate policy for over here in the United Kingdom for maybe 10, 15, 20 years longer, where anyone that speaks up about immigration or religion, or particularly certain religions like Islam or particular certain religions, you get completely drowned out into, you're not to say that because you're you're a racist, or you're an Islamophobic, or you have some sort of issue. So all these thoughts have just been suppressed and suppressed and suppressed and suppressed. Now over here, particularly in the way our elections are, every 5 years when we do get an election, is a myriad of parties. And to be honest, if you really look at the overview of the United Kingdom, I mean, there's certain regions where it doesn't matter. Your vote really initially doesn't count. If you're a blue voter, if you're a Conservative voter in parts of the north of England, it doesn't matter, because for as long as I've lived, amongst my grandparents have been alive, they've always been red. They've always been Democrat. As your would be Democrat, Labour. They've always been it, and they always will be it, because that's just the momentum and family generations and stuff. So the vote doesn't count. So all these voices don't really get to be heard. So every 5 years when there's an election, some of these voices get sort of built up. It's like in the election time, well, let's go and put some cameras under some general public and see what they have to say. And when it does come up, it's all like, oh yeah, well, these people are just inherently racist and just not talked. And it's all being suppressed and suppressed and suppressed. So when it came down to a simple yes and no, people were like, bang, and they gave their opinion. And that's been the narration since. So everybody who didn't leave was this kind of racist, all this. But this is the trouble about suppressing these kind of discussions, where people can have these things, because people have seen their whole cities and regions and everything changed around them, and any voicing of that going up the chain to the parliament or to anyone above it, you're just demonized. So all this it's like life itself. It's like psychology. If you have a bad thought, and it's like the old 50s attitude you see in films, like, suppress it, young man, stick it right down in that stomach. And that's what we've done with society. We've suppressed all these issues, and they haven't been spoken about, and it's still going on right now. This is the narrative that's going on right now, because there's a whole other side that says, no, let's suppress it even more, let's push it down, we shouldn't talk about it, we shouldn't talk about it, we shouldn't talk about it. And then it's all been built up. And the whole thing about it is, you saw this in the reflection of how UK voted in the Brexit, but equally you're seeing these echoes all around Europe, and like equally, and I think this is where it ties into you in America, these isms rising. The isms of socialism, the isms of nationalism, the isms of fascism. They're all these little tribal things, and it's all due because of this whole 20-year project of basically this suppressed speech. And let's try to make everybody get along. And you can't suppress speech, because humans on a day-to-day level do speak. But it's just when they get out to the official media, then these voices aren't heard. So when you see in the media, everyone thinks, oh, it doesn't happen. But I'm sure it's a reflection. If you go to your town, on a day-to-day level, people are talking about issues and thinking, that doesn't get reflected in the politics. It doesn't get reflected in the media. And that's what we've seen. And that's why I think a lot of this Brexit has been about. That's why it shook the establishment to the core, because they're like, oh, and they were shocked that in the yes or no vote, when it came down to yes or no, they were like, oh, people voted that way. And they just haven't seen this coming. And that's just a general overview of how I think this momentum is going not only here, I think it's going on in the States. I think you're seeing it going all around the world, all over the place at the moment. And I think this is why it's boiling down to two general factions. You've got those who basically are struggling for this identity of, look, let's all transform ourselves, and then there's the other lot that basically saying, no, we need to reform everybody else. Let's tell everybody else what to do, and it's breaking down to that, which is to me an age-old kind of duality of life, and it's this is all happening, and it was 100 years ago to this weekend that the Battle of the Somme started, which is just 100 years ago that mankind was chucking thousands of bodies into pits just for the same argument. And it comes down to what kind of world do we live in? Do we live in a world where everybody else is trying to tell everybody else what to do, or do we live in a world where it's all start with ourselves? It's all trying to make ourselves better people, and it's boiling down to that. And on that other, when you actually boil it down to those two things, all the isms are all in that other side. And this is what it's really driven me to kind of like head explosion over the last week, hearing so many, it's unbelievable, people who've been speaking democracy for years and years and years, and suddenly like, well, no, democracy doesn't matter. What's happened with this vote is that basically the intelligent didn't really have their voice, and what's happened is the unintelligent have basically, and I thought, this is unreal. You've got, this is scarily like what happened in the Second World War. It's like living in the 30s. Sorry, anyway, I'm rambling, but that's just generally, but go on.
No, I actually kind of wanted to let you just go. If it was a problem, I would have cut you off. But I want to hear your perspective, because I don't fully understand. I'm still kind of young and learning about global politics and our world in general, and it's a lot to take in when you really dive in, and it takes talking to your friends, meeting people around the world, and trying to really understand it from everyone else's perspective instead of your own, from what little you do understand. And it's impossible to understand it all, so we have to talk about these things. But like you said, a lot of it is suppressed. There's a lot of conversation about a lot of things globally. It's a global problem. People, and I think a lot of it is rooted in the fear tactics you speak of, because if you keep people in fear, you have to kind of play that game. You have to create isms. You have to try and get people behind your movement. And really, the movement really needs, like you said, to be with the individual. But here's the big issue with that. The people who like playing that fear tactic and like controlling society and controlling people and steering things in their ideological perspective, you tend to limit other people's ability to better themselves. So you have all these people just going downhill on a personal level, because they're terrified, they're scared, they don't have the resources they need, they're watching their friends and family get sick and don't have the care that they that they should have. Society is just crumbling before them, and you can't think properly, especially if you have children and you're worried about their future and trying to plan, and there's no way to plan with the uncertainty that is part of those fear games. So you're stuck with this situation where it's a very fight or flight mode, and it's on purpose. There's quite frankly some sociopathic, horrible people in this world that like keeping people in that fight or flight mode, because then they're reactionary. When people are reactionary, they make very predictable decisions. You give them only one or two options, and they generally pick the one you want them to if you're in control. And it's really frustrating that we're in this situation. But at the same time, when I'm watching, you speak a lot about a lot of the isms, and specifically nationalism is a big one. Not even there. It's very prominent there, but we're starting to see it in a big way here in the States as well, because you even have people having talks about California as a state splitting up into multiple micro states, and that's a similar situation, because you have people who can't agree, and then they start talking about secession and wanting to separate and create smaller groups and of more isms, and it's really frustrating, because you do have that fear tactic playing into the politics of what direction that secession takes, and that nationalism view, and the different movements that start developing within different populations. And it's frustrating to watch as an individual, because you're like, man, I really wish there was something I could do to help with this situation, but at the same time, you're back to thinking about other people and not bettering yourself. But at the same time, you're stuck in this fight or flight fear mode, and it's a really frustrating situation. But the only difference I see now is, just like you said, is decentralization, and cryptocurrencies are finally a permissionless financial system and a permissionless form of governance, because that's all governance really is managing finances. I mean, if you really want to boil it down to things, it's managing people and finances. That's all governance is. Politics is just dealing with all the problems between all the people. And we're starting to see, since we have this nationalism thing, you're starting to see smaller groups of people break off in different ideological situations. But the thing I'm hoping I see is, instead of people choosing the door A or door B, which generally leads to the same thing with these sociopaths I previously spoke of, we now have a third choice, which is really an individual approach and taking your own network of people. And now this time it's global because of how connected we are. I mean, look, we're having this conversation all the way across the world right now, and it's just as easy as making a little bit of time to do it. And we have a governance type system that's starting to develop, and we have a financial system. I mean, people need to take door number C, which isn't going to be easy. It's going to be probably the hardest thing people have ever done in their entire lives as humans, is breaking away from that centralized control and power and fear and fight or flight game that has been played for way too long, way too long. And you can get really into it if we had someone who was pro centralization, pro big government. Okay, great. I like looking at all sides of this. Okay, if they were in this conversation, they would say, okay, well, we have populations rising, we have extremist isms that are starting to really take over in the world in a big way that's really scary. So you want to start kind of breaking off into a form of protectionism is really what it is. I mean, societies go through a cycle of boom and bust, protectionism, and then generally into conflict and war. And then the cycle just keeps repeating over and over and over in those centralized systems that try to protect themselves. We are finally at a point where we can break away from that, but it is going to be a lot of work. It is going to be hard, and it's going to take a lot of people understanding that everything we know about the world really needs to be put to the side, because we have a good 100 years at best before these problems we're dealing with right now escalate out of control to the point we aren't going to be able to fix them. And so I'm trying my best, to better myself every day, just so I can think clearer. And if I am put in a situation of fight or flight, I'm a little healthier minded, I'm a little more ready for change, and I can personally adapt. But again, I mean, in the United States, you want to talk about fear tactics. It's not only used for a political reason here. Here you hear everyone talk about prepping, and it's like a big prepper culture in the United States, and everyone talks about it, and everyone feels really strongly about it. But I like to always look at both sides of the picture, and a lot of times here in the U.S., things have been fairly stable, even when this prepper thing and it's the end of the world, oh my God, so this, and this could happen. And those same people that do that generally own companies that sell like guns and ammunition, prepping supplies, bulletproof vests, MREs, like all the stuff that you would need for that. And they turn it into this huge business, and these people preaching this saying, oh, it's going to be the end tomorrow. It's going to be the end tomorrow. They're making freaking millions off of all these people. And it's just a fear tactic that, instead of actually like sitting down and thinking, oh, well, instead of thinking about, oh, that could happen tomorrow, and just saying, screw it, most of the people I know who do that will actually sit there and completely ignore all these possible solutions and focus on nothing but prepping in the United States here. That's how most of the preppers I know are. They're like, no, there's no point in focusing on solutions because it's over. It's already over. It's just not the end of the show yet. And I'm like, well, no, that's the point. it's not over yet. We can actually create solutions. You can work on yourself. You can build and work with people, and that's what we have now is a solution. The problem is you have a lot of negative press and propaganda and BS against decentralization, cryptocurrencies, and alternative currencies in general, and living off grid in general, and all the things that it would take to just eliminate centralization. There's a lot of propaganda pushing against it. So we are at a point now where people are starting to wake up, and it's a comforting thing to see. But at the same time, you've got to remember that you got to get that I want to control other people thing out of your mind. Because when I first got into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and decentralization in general, I wanted to like go preach it, spread the word, and do all this stuff. But at the same time, most of the people you're talking to feel like you're trying to sell something to them. And you've got to kind of like sit back and just focus on yourself. And at the same time, you're like, am I being selfish for doing this? But no, it's really, you've got to reach out and understand that it's the like-minded people that are the ones that we need to be working with, which is what we're doing. We're reaching out right now, talking to like-minded people, and I'm starting to spend less time trying to evangelize decentralization, more so than just really connect with the other people that understand it, really try to build, really try to just push it forward with the people who already understand it. So the people who I want to understand it it'll be a no-brainer once all the work is done. And unfortunately, I felt like I have wasted a lot of time trying to evangelize something that just needed time, work, and collaboration between people who already understand it.
Yeah,
that's my spiel.
No, that's the very essence of the breakdown of what has been around this whole Brexit is argument. Really, it breaks down to that freedom, and at the moment, like you said, this is where we're living in these. This is where we're living in days where these conversations, I'm sure, have been had throughout history. I'm sure we're not the first people to sit down and have this conversation, but equally, they're so essential to the times we live in, because it goes back to what I was saying back before. If you suppress any conversation and you don't have real conversations, then you don't understand what these words and everything means. And it's like the word, like I'm saying, everyone gets deluded. How many times do you hear the word freedom chucked around? Everybody's pro-freedom, pro-change, everything's positive, and then everyone gets sold along it, and all that happens is, and this is where it breaks down to the fundamental things, life just goes on. It's like you were speaking about the preppers. All these people that always talk about tomorrow never comes. This is the present is all we've got, is this moment we've got right now.
That's right.
Which is why I think it's essential, like you said. The real freedom of what people have got to wake up to now is when, like I say, it's breaking down to the individual and going, right, okay, what can I do? Not what can I rely on other people to do? Not what can I sit back and think, okay, the solutions are going to be built by somebody. What can I do? And then people always say, which is, to be fair, man, we've been fed a whole paradigm for years and years and years about how, oh well, you're just a small little individual, minuscule nothing. You can't change anything, and that's the complete opposite way of looking at it and going, okay, I can change everything just by how I do my life. And this is where I think we're seeing, and this is, to be honest, man, I live in this part of the world now, and I'm sure you see reflections in the United States. And this is why I don't, as much as we could go off into metaphysical debates about, psychology of human nature, when it boils down to the actual day-to-day life, you're seeing it in, I mean, let's talk about one of the issues that's been spread around this whole week after the Brexit one. I mean, we've got a whole bunch of people, 10,000, for instance, 10,000 marched on London, all of them in their mid-20s to mid-30s, all basically demanding that we should have a new referendum, because basically anyone under 25, basically over the age of 25, doesn't have shouldn't have an equal vote to them. Their vote should be more weighted, more have 1.5 or 1.7 count to the one, because they're living in the future and they're more progressive. And you think this is when it breaks down to this individual stuff. You think these are intelligent people, and yet their idea of freedom is basically marching off, like you said, towards an ism and towards a flag and towards an ideology. And this is where the real freedom, which is the, like you said, there's no point evangelizing, because we live in a world where everybody's evangelizing. You know, companies are spending millions upon billions to advertise their products. Governments are spending millions on their propaganda. You know, religions are spending millions upon, you know, getting there. Everybody's spending to capture that. And I think that's the wrong approach. I think the right approach, and I think this is where it's exciting times to live in, and the greatest days to live in, but equally we've got so much responsibility on our shoulders. We've got to do this properly, because if we get this wrong, man, we could be entering, like you said, this could be an alarm. I don't mean this in any over dramatic, doomy way, but this could be the last essence of the human species on this planet, because we've got AI rising, we've got all these other things. I mean, people, when I hear people talking about, oh, you know, I heard it the other week, and I thought, man, people really need to get a crux of where we are in time. And you hear all these shouts about, again, around the Brexit, about, oh, I demand this much an hour, and I demand that much an hour, and I thought, man, we're a generation away at most from all your jobs being done by machines. And again, and this is other things when I hear that, and I hear people saying, oh yeah, but I don't want machines. I had the same. This is what really gets to me, Brady, man, and this is where I kind of think we've got to, maybe bit by bit, we just got to expand this knowledge and get it out. And I think maybe it's going to take time and all that. And I think if you understand it takes time, it's understanding what you do with that, because what we're seeing is, and I saw this in the 80s and stuff like this, and this whole argument around everything around the same thing then, and things, you know, kind of moved forward, and we thought we changed things and stuff like that, and it all broke down to these isms and all these ideas of, like you said, everyone's got these ideologies they go, oh, everyone goes behind, and it's just it frustrates me, because you think, are we just going to go through the same thing again? Because I had the same thing again. I don't want all the coal pits closing down, because I don't think it's right that men are losing their jobs. I thought, wait, what kind of human being are you, where you think it's okay to send another human being down a pit into those gassy, horrendous situations to dig to get coal out of the ground? Surely a machine is better for that. And this is what I think about all these anti-modernity arguments I hear. Like, surely we want things to go into the future. And this is where I say we've got this crucible of knowledge that people like me and you in this conversation have got, because not many people have this kind of conversation, and yet we've got this responsibility to go, okay, this technology it is almost kind of a-neutral, and what it's going to be shaped into and how this new world is going to progress is going to be down to us as human beings and what we, as on a one-to-one level, do. And this is where it breaks down to, like I was saying before, about, oh well, we're small and we haven't got anything. No, we can all do that. We can all in ourselves enlighten ourselves, which basically means we live our lives like that. Because when it breaks down to it, Brady, it doesn't matter about how much prepping you've got and how many Uzis you've got and how much money you've got and how much gold you've got stacked away and how many Ferraris you got and how many lands, and you know, if you've got an island you escape to. It doesn't matter. What's going to matter is love, because that's when you break this down to, it comes down to two things. It's love versus fear. When you really boil this all down to, what we should all be concentrating is building up those things inside of us that when it all does break down, if it all goes to pot and it all goes to hell in a handcart, what we're going to need, we're going to need that loving kindness, that thing that's going to be like, why should I want to put my house, like I said to you, my castle is your house, man. You ever come up here, I want you to treat my house like it's your house. Where does that come from? That comes from us having a real conversation. And this is this is what's missing in the culture we live in right now. And this is why I think it doesn't take money, it doesn't take anything else. It just means people stepping up. And I think this is one of the things, like you said, it's that hardest thing to break the resonance. But when you do, you know, when you do have that ability to just then go, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm a human being, and I'm going to stand up. Next time I'm in a crowd of people, I'm down the pub or I'm down, I'm sitting in the bus stop. I'm not just going to sit there, turn my machine. I'm going to talk to that person. When the conversation gets into, I'm not going to go into the initial, all the things that we're programmed to think, like, oh, mustn't talk religion, mustn't talk politics. No, talk about those things, have real conversations, and that is the essence of how what I think, how we're going to progress into the future, or we're not going to progress into the future, when it boils right down to it, because we need, and that's why it boils down to all us as individuals to have these conversations. And what scares me at the moment, my man, especially when I see it everywhere, is that you just see it everywhere. Nobody wants to have conversations anymore. And I've seen it over here. I was mentioning a few weeks ago, I was watching some of the coverage of the Trump Hillary things, and some of the, you've got one set of protesters with just all these Hillary lot with just whistles and drums, and they don't even want to communicate anymore. And you think this is breakdown of human civilization when one side doesn't even want to sit down and put their ideas or their beliefs and their ideologies in a seat of reason and have a discussion. That's the fundamental first step when a civilization is breaking down. And this is what I see in Europe. I just see it everywhere. Like, man, this is all breaking down because nobody wants to have a real conversation. And this is why I think these conversations are important. And this is why I think, hopefully, you think, okay, if we have these conversations, hopefully it makes someone else think, do you know what, I can have this conversation, because that is breaking the spell of fear. The fear that says to you, no, don't as a human being, go with the crowd, stay in the herd, don't speak up, don't go with anything, because if you do that,
problem. That's really the problem, though, is a lot of people, they don't just stop and want to actually truly have a conversation about how they feel and what they think. Because they're afraid of what the other person might think. They're afraid of opposition. They're afraid of someone disagreeing and getting in an argument, and especially politics. That's like the old thing. It's not appropriate to talk about politics, money, or religion. And it's like those are the three most dominant factors in society. We should probably have a chat about how we're all feeling about things. So I know you're not just have some crazy religion you created in your basement that equates to killing me and my family because that's part of your religion that you created with your little weird cult you started. I mean, we really need to talk about it, bring it out into the open and have conversations. But that's the thing. A lot of the people that don't want to talk about it are generally the people who are probably playing that fear game. They don't want you to know what they're planning. They have weird agendas, and they don't want to talk about it because you're going to be like, wow, that's how you feel? That's what you're doing? Yeah, how about we have another talk about it? And that's what it boils down to, is if we're going to have any kind of ism, any kind of ism or movement, it should really be a philosophical movement, talking about what your philosophy is, your personal philosophy, how you feel, what you believe, and see how that jives with other people. Talk about your philosophy, and because philosophy dating back centuries, that's what it's based off of, is having a conversation. It's based on expressing how you feel about things and getting down to the bottom of whether or not it's actually just explaining it. Really, I mean, you had totally psycho sickos in the world that were some of the greatest philosophers in history, had really valid things to say, and their philosophy, for lack of a better term, was fucked. But they actually sat down, explained it, and there was actually really valuable things in very unique perspective. Even though it was because they were kind of a sicko, it's still valuable, it's still important for people to understand, and it still needs to be part of the conversation, even if it's really weird and screwed up. Especially if it's weird and screwed up.
Exactly, because that's what I'm trying to allude to, Brady. I mean, if you don't, you get what goes on right now in Europe, and I mean, it's all over the place, man. And this is what I mean, you've got isms rising, all over the place, and a lot of them, and this is the scary thing. It's like we're living a reflection of not history. It's not that old. You've got nationalism joining with socialism, joining with it. Do you know what I mean? And you think, what? This is what happened with the Nazis and stuff. And all over Europe, you've got. Yeah. And this is what you're going to see in the next 5 years. And it's going to be the same in the States. You're going to see it. It's not maybe this election. I mean, this election is just kind of a prelude to what's going to be like in 2020, dude. You wait till and this is what happens when you suppress all these things. And, I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. It's why it's essential we have these conversations, because in the real day-to-day level, the more people that get caught in these, team red, team blue, this person, and it's all about relying on somebody else to put, to make something better for you. And all the time this happens, these whole isms just grow and grow and grow, and walls are built, and And before you know it, you're like, whoa, we've gone from an Enlightenment period, which we could have had, and we're all going to be wiped out. Because this is one of the things, and I think it's a real part of this conversation, is, and this is why I keep reading this back in, is and like no other time, you know, I mean, I've often alluded to this, you know, in the Second World War, people could do what they did. I lived in Argentina. Many Germans all fled down to Argentina, made out they weren't Nazis, and all just showing out, oh, I was oppressed. But, you know, and fair enough, they got all ripped up their accounts and they all fled. We're coming in, well, you can argue whether we're in it right now or definitely going to be in the next 5 years, when that ability just to, you know, almost disintegrate yourself as a human being and then go to another part of the rock and live and start somewhere else. Those days are gone, because all our accounts have been put online and stuff like this. And this is why I think it's really important to have these conversations, because it's the truth. How do we as human beings, and we were alluding to earlier on, how do we look back at our grandparents and think, how did you look at human beings? How did you live with racism? How did you see women like that? How did you, you know, don't you think history is going to judge us all the same? And this is what one of the things at the moment, and you've seen it clearly in this Brexit argument, whole set of people, particularly, I mean, it's uncomfortable maybe for us as who are creative people to have this, but the general creative narrative is, oh, of course we should go to isms. Isms are good. Yeah. Of course it is. I mean, they were putting cameras under people's noses at Glastonbury, and you couldn't find one person who didn't think, yes, we should all stay in the EU. The EU is great. We should all go to more central power. And it was just like, as you know, the creative industry right now in this paradigm, yeah, you get rewarded if you're making films that do this. It's the old Team America, wasn't it? You know, the old, you know, that paradigm is very true. Now, how many people in the creative industry do you ever sort of standing up and saying, oh no, I'm not for this? It's very easy to stand up and say, oh, I'm a social justice warrior and I fly the flag for this, and this is what I'm trying to say, and this is why it's right to have these conversations to think, oh, you know, that's what I've heard all this week. I've had a lot of people saying, oh yeah, the politicians have these conversations, and people are like, no, let's look at the real white elephants in the room. Let's look at the people who have a lot of influence and don't have this conversation. The creative industry, you know, this is why, I mean, this is why I think it's essential these conversations are had by everybody. And this is one of the things that you're seeing at the moment, particularly like we were talking about with this putting people into little boxes and boxes and boxes. Then you suddenly get a representative for that box, and all of a sudden you're just diluting human thought into one person represents all these people, and then before you know it, you just got all these disparate voices going on, and it just becomes this big shouting match. And reason and logic and philosophy and love and all the things that are the best of us as a human species get lost in this big noise of just people just shouting, trying to get their viewpoint across. And that's why I think sometimes it's like you said, Brady, sometimes it's the wisest point, and maybe it's one of the things why Eastern philosophies really point towards that. Sometimes it's, you get a lot more said just by what you don't say, just by the way you live. And maybe that's very Eastern philosophy. You say very little, but the way you live is more of a shining example. Maybe that's some of the things that we as I think we are the people right now who are wrestling these conversations, and that's what we need to do. Because as I said before, and I don't think maybe you see the thing, I think it's essential. It's essential we get this right, because I think. And I don't want to be too dramatic about this, but I think, you know, literally the whole of human species is going to either fall or stand on what decisions we make in the next 2 or 3 years as a human species.
I personally feel our conversation has said two words more than any other word we've said in this entire episode of Life as People, and that is isms and philosophy. And there's the dichotomy between the two is very, very unique. I mean, if you go look up the definition of the root Latin word ism, it means doctrine, system, manner, condition, or act. And that doesn't sound like a very happy, comfortable thing, no matter what kind of ism it is. There's no good ism if it's a doctrine or manner, an act, a system. Like I'm kind of sick of all of that, and I want to move closer to philosophy, because then when you lightened that conversation, you moved over to the philosophy in what you don't say. You know, you start moving into these things, and when you look up the word philosophy, it's the rational investigation of questions about existence and knowledge and ethics. That sounds like a lot better of a system to live under than any ism. And I think that's, in my opinion, out of everything I've learned, is people need to have conversations about philosophy and stop with the isms. If you have, if the root word ism has anything to do with your life, you should really stop and think about your philosophy as to why you are focused on an ism. And maybe it'll kind of shift the conversation a little bit. But it's you know, it's scary because the isms are using fear. And you can only laugh because we have to take a lighthearted approach to this and really just start with ourselves and have these conversations. But I don't even know where to start, you know? Like, this world is so complicated, and just when I think I understand all these isms and politics and systems and governments and social orders and lack thereof, it just gets more complicated. And a lot of people like to look to their governments for safety and security, and I'm like, you know what? They're just as confused as you and I, and it's just as complicated, if not more, for them. And they're doing these really screwed up isms and doctrines and laws out of a reactionary fear state. Okay, do we really want like a government in the fight or flight as a large entity having 100% control over us? Or do we want to maybe start looking at alternatives, which is fork it and run?
Exactly, and this is, I think this is a whole kind of, it really plays in with the whole what's gone on over here with the Brexit one, was because when you start sort of taking, you know, like you say, out of isms, and you start thinking, okay, how are these isms given their power? How are they given their structure? Because we can't deny it. We do live in a world where we are, like you said, surrounded by them. I mean, most people you're going to bump into will fall into one of those isms, and there will be, so a lot of people you meet and you think, oh, okay, and you're excited by people. You think, oh, I've gone 10 minutes, I've gone 5 minutes. You know, it's the old joke about vegans. I mean, how long does it? You know, how do you know how long? How do you know if someone's a vegan? It's actually 30 seconds before they bring it up. I mean, it's that very thing. People love to bring up their beliefs and their isms and stuff. You know.
Yeah.
But when you we got to understand, okay, so where are all these based in? They're based in things, like you said, they are based in structures. Now, okay, I think some of these structures are going to, like you say, they have the ability to be broken down, and I think they are breaking down. I think this is what we're seeing in the world generally. I think most people are thinking, wait a minute, we can't really believe in a system where once every 5 years we get to vote for somebody. This goes back to the 18th century stuff. Most people are understanding that now. This is where the fear, this is the fear tactics that people step into. That's the void that the fear breaks into, because it says, oh yes, but if you don't have that, it's all going to be scary, and you know, it's all going to be some sort of, you know, and you know, they start to use words and stuff. And this is where I think it's, like you say, philosophy deals with things and things. And you think, where all this breakdown? I mean, philosophy was the look at it. We live in generally a system of, this is one of the things we generally fight for, we generally live under. I mean, I'm not, you know, is democracy. That was a philosophy. Now that's the whole thing. Now, instead of having a discussion about democracy, which I think is crucial, I think we live in times where everyone just goes on to this, oh, democracy is great. Well, democracy's led us to where we are right now. Democracy, even in the new world, I mean, it's hilarious. Watching what's gone on with Ethereum and the DAO and all that is just hilarious. I thought, there you go. That's democracy in action. There's this crowd mentality that the crowd, the herd know best, isn't really the truth. And I know we want to, but that's what I'm saying. Where are these things based in? Where are they? Where is it? Is it part of the human nature? That's great. That's what philosophy deals with. Okay, so that's part of the human condition. But where are these things given their power? Where are they? And they're given their power and you start to see it in centralized, organized structures, because they can then demand. This is when it turns from just a philosophy into, okay, so once you've got this fundamental, you've got, okay, we've got a set of laws we can build fundamentally, then you can get money, then you can extort money. With that money you can build your resources, you build your power, and it's whether it's a corporation, religion, or a government, and this is what happens. And then before you know it, you've got this disparate bunch of people who are one crowd fighting another crowd over a piece of land. And I'm sure that philosophies and people have been talking about this for centuries. And so if humanity's had this discussion many times, what can we do? Because we are the most, we've got the tools, the power, we've got the knowledge that maybe no one's ever had before. So how can we push this forward? And to do that, you've got to look at and think, okay, we've got to look at the fundamental things, like you said. We've got to talk about philosophy, and then we've got to break it down to think, okay, we've got to, I think it breaks it right, like I say, really all breaks down to, we've got to look at certain things and think, what is it in the human condition that goes, I know what I do. I won't rely on myself. I'll hand it over to that person. I'll hand it over to this person. What is it in that? These are the ones we can break down to, and we've also got to realize this is where it all becomes like you go into the murky deep waters, because you think, okay, that's one, okay, we've got to get to human beings, we've got to get to question that. Then you think, okay, brilliant, it'd be great if we could all start at the kids, and we could just not pre-program them and not teach them all our beliefs, but okay, what are we going to do with all the adults? So then it becomes a difficult second question. But these are the questions that, how many times do you hear discussed? I don't hear them discussed very much, but these are the questions when you really break down to it. And this is what makes me sometimes internally laugh a bit more, because I think, well, we think we're so enlightened as a species, and we are. We've got all these great tools and these great with connections going on, but you think, well, wait a minute, I guaranteed backing the Greeks or backing the Egyptians or the Persians or any African tribe or any Indonesian tribe or any South American tribe. You hear these discussions on a daily basis around a campfire. We, in this enlightened age of Euro elections and football and shopping malls and X Factor and that, we don't have these conversations, and that's where we've digressed. And it goes back to this whole kind of theme that's been going through this conversation, is it's all about getting ideas and speech and anything that enables freedom and this ability to have these conversations comes out is a good thing. And this is where it breaks down to, again, this is where the other part of this is what we can all do as human beings is, okay, how can we enable that non-suppression of speech? And firstly we can do it is these things that we've got our mouths and we utter these these vibrations to allow that to be free. And then to think, okay, because like you say, this is one of the things that's always inspired me. We're living through this, me and you, Brady. We've met, we've connected, we've built. That's the essence of where we all are as human beings. And it doesn't matter. This is a great thing that's more than any time in human species, where we can have, I can connect with you. It doesn't matter about geography. It doesn't matter, like, 100 years ago, like, oh, okay, wicked, Brady McKenna's over the hill and he's 50 miles away on a horse ride. It's going to take me a day. And, I'm going to go and see Brady McKenna and we're going to have a great discussion.
Yeah.
Now we can have this instantly, and this is what I'm saying. This is the very fortunate element we have as a species and as a human being. We can have this conversation now, and this is why I keep going back to it. That's why it's so incredibly important that we get this right, and getting it right means carrying on these kind of conversations. And I think the other point of this is not just two elements. Not just having a conversation, then going back and just retreating to your life and just carrying on. Try to do something to build it. And then the other one as well, and I think something you alluded to, and it's something we both, I think, were in this camp is, and it relates to maybe a theory in what happened with the Tao. Don't rush things. Follow nature. Nature takes time from a seed to a bloom. And this idea we've got this whole thing about everything's got to be done, like you said earlier on. Everything's got to be done yesterday, and I've got to do it. No, sometimes let's just build it and do it, because that's, to me, is where we're going to go wrong. That was one of the things that, to me, I bit my tongue a lot about that the whole Ethereum, because I thought stuff like that does more damage than it does good, because it puts people off. They're like, oh, Whereas we should be doing things, like you said, in a proper way and building things. And that's some of the wisdom that we can learn. And this is what these conversations are good for. Because like you said, I think the crucial things is having conversations, building nature, and letting things build and evolve in time and amongst people, because we have got that ability, but we've got to strip away that human ego to go, I've got to be the first, I've got to be the biggest, I've got to be the best. And it's got to be
honest. To be honest, you speak about Ethereum and the DAO. I love what's going on with Ethereum and the DAO. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's reminiscent of nature. Nature is chaotic. Nature is a freaking mess. But within that chaos and mess forms a very natural order of things. So I like what I'm seeing there. Okay, I want to see complete and utter chaos there. I want to see Ethereum fork off into 2 networks. A lot of other people might disagree with me, but this is my own personal opinion. A lot of people are worried about their money and how much money they have and how much the DAO is worth and how much Ethereum's worth. And I'm like, you know what? I don't care. Neither one of them is ever going to go away. They're still going to function the same way. It's still a brilliant, awesome idea. The idea of an autonomous, decentralized organization, smart contracts, cryptocurrency, peer-to-peer, totally decentralized social systems. I mean, come on, that's amazing. I don't care what anything is worth in the given moment. I want to see the networks fork. I want to see the chaos, because out of that chaos will become something amazing. I see it coming, and the longer we hold that dam back and be like, no, don't let it break, don't let it break, we got too much money in this, that's right there what is wrong with a lot of things, because you will hear it from a lot of crazy politicians. Why are they doing that really dumb crap that they're doing? Because they have too much money or political energy invested in the situation. It's either money or political energy invested. And when that happens, they're holding that dam back. No, don't let it break. Don't let it break. And in the situation of the Brexit, I mean, the dam broke. You know, I mean, it's done, and that's happening in all over the world. And a lot of people want to say bad things about nationalism and large structures breaking apart and the DAO falling apart and Ethereum forking into 2 different networks and based on ideological differences, and same with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's going through the same thing. Quite frankly, it's inevitable. And the longer you hold that dam back, the worse the fallout is going to be. If you just kind of let it happen like it's going to anyway. I mean, if that pressure is on the dam's probably going to break, because the pressure isn't going anywhere. It's going to keep pushing till the dam breaks. And then it's going to flow into something beautiful and amazing afterwards. And that's just the way it works. So I'm pro chaos, I guess. I even have a chaos star tattooed on my shoulder because I'm pro chaos. Let's do it. You know,
oh, man, I completely concur you on the chaos one. My point I was trying to sort of allude around the whole kind of the DAO, the Ethereum, maybe was the fact of the idea of just trying to rush things just for the ego. That's what annoys me when I see, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like thinking, I've seen a car engine and I'll put the very first one out quickly. No, just take an extra month, fix it so it's not going to be coming. It's one of the things. It is, and I'm not having. This isn't any slight anyone, because I mean I don't mean that. I just mean it's just on a really kind of pure level of mind. I just think it's like when I create a page, the lesson I've learned is when to walk away, and it's a moment when there's not any more to fill in, not the bit when it's not any more to leave out, and that. There's this tendency all the time, especially with pressure. I mean, it's like, man. I mean, I you know, it's like everything. Everybody's coming to you and going, "Oh, we want it," and they're like, "Woo!" And you think, okay. Sometimes, like you said, like you were talking about earlier on, sometimes you just got to have the bravery just to go, look, until let me just do this until it's. And that's what annoys me, because if it's like anything else. If you start putting out bad, back in the day, you start putting any bad products out, it just to the general population, it has that bad effect, and they think, oh, you know what I mean? And that's why I think sometimes we just got to learn the wisdom of do things and make sure that when they are done properly, this is what this point is. Don't just have it's part of this culture we live in. We want to have this a rush discussion. That then it's like, oh great, let's go. No, let things brew and ferment and have some time and bounce a few ideas about and come back in a month's time and think, because what you may think was great one week, when you actually kind of spend a week away from it, leave it alone, or like I do with a painting, you think in the moment you think, oh, this is the best thing ever. Then you walk away from it, come back in a week's time, and think, well, what mind space was I in when I thought that was the best thing ever, man? And that's what we've forgotten. That's true to me. That's true wisdom. And that's one of the things that you get with age. That's the thing that comes with wisdom, and I think it's one of the things that comes with age as well. Because when you this is the thing I was trying to allude to about the kids over here. I mean, a lot of kids, when you're in your 20s and everything's like, you think, yeah, doesn't life change when you have a child of your own? And then suddenly you think, oh, wait a minute, I've got to start thinking on bigger things and more, and that's what I'm trying to say to you. We've got to get to that frame of mind, which is hopefully where we're getting to. And I don't know. I just think that's why I was relating it to these things. I think we can do more harm. I'm with you. I think this is all basically a wave is coming, and to me, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I'm just being very, very particular about certain things. Just start with me. I wouldn't ever put a piece of artwork out unless I was 100% happy. And that's what kind of my thoughts on the DAO and all that. Like, you should have fixed the holes in that before releasing it. That was my thought on that.
I will play devil's advocate with you there. I will say this: most of the best artwork in history was never finished.
Yep.
I'm just going to play devil's advocate there. Just briefly.
No, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. But I mean, I think there's a difference. Go on.
I just think it's nice to just put your ideas out there and not really worry about if it's done. Not really worry about the chaos that it may or may not cause, and not stress about all the little things. I think. But it goes back to what you were saying, though, and I agree with you here, is you shouldn't really rush things, because at the same time, people are rushing because they want to make sure it's finished and release it, and they're rushing and rushing and rushing, and they're like, I don't have the time to get it done by my deadline, and it all boils down to time, and the fact that time has been pushed to this. I mean, time doesn't even exist. I mean, it's a mathematical impossibility that our perception of time is any relevance in the universe at all. It's just crap we created in our head, and that is what causes us to push and push and push, and it's because our lifespans are very short as a living creature, period. I mean, it's a blink of an eye, our existence and our moment we have right now in this life that we currently live. I mean, it is a blink of an eye. So people are rushing because they feel like they're not going to get enough done. But at the same time, you do need to just slow down. You do need to just procrastinate a little bit and think about things and take it a little slow, because quite frankly, this is the only life like this one that you're ever going to get. Even if you believe in reincarnation or the heaven, hell, whatever your belief is, you're never going to get a life like this one in this moment, regardless of what your belief is. This is the only one you're going to get now. So procrastinate, enjoy it, live in the moment, because the moment's all you really have, and try your best to change your perception of time. And I think that's the big thing with people, is changing your perception of time, which is why I like coming on Life as People, which is why I like sessions, which is why I like Ants, is because you have a root theme, and that's people spending time together. That is the most valuable thing on earth, period, hands down. even though time doesn't exist, the fact of the matter is we do have a very short period of time with this version of life that we currently have. And that's valuable that it's that short and you want to spend that chunk of time with another person. That shows like an obscene amount of value right there. Probably the most, in my opinion, the most valuable thing on earth. And the unfortunate thing is time has been commoditized by the current social structure we have right now, and capitalism and money. And money is just another invention of the human mind. It's an illusion, just like you said. And that's why I put that quote from you in my song, because money is a freaking illusion, just like time. Just like most crap humans stress about, it's all a freaking illusion. It's bullshit. And I think I like time banking a lot. I'm a big fan. I participated in time banking a little bit here and there. I don't have one here in my hometown, which is unfortunate. I would like to start one. But I think that doesn't matter because I see sessions as my form of time banking. The people who come on sessions, we're time banking. We're exchanging time. Life as people is a form of time banking or exchanging time, you know? If I sat down and I just said, you know what, Tim, I'm just going to give you my time. I want you to just, you know, if you need help with something, let's sit down for Life as People, and I'm just going to give you some of my time. I'm giving you my time now, and you're giving me your time. It's an exchange of value. So I see this as us time banking right now as we speak. So the problem is the things have been time has been commoditized. So people are always like, well, time is money. I can't spend time without getting something in return. And it's like, if you're spending time with somebody, they're spending time. Hence the key word spending. You're spending time with each other. So you are getting something, and you just need to relax and accept the fact that is the most valuable thing on earth, is that exchange of time. And I have a couple ideas for sessions and Life as People. And I think in the time banking area of thinking that I think might kind of shift people's perspective philosophically about time, because I think that is a key thing as well. I see three themes. All right, you want to get your head off of politics, money, and religion? Okay, let's talk about the few things that truly do matter in this world when you eliminate all that garbage. It's time spent with other people, the exchange of time, straight up, and, you know, eliminating isms and moving to philosophy and enjoying life and procrastinating a little bit and making sure you're enjoying it, because in my opinion, after having a child and looking at the time spent with her and that exchange of time with my daughter, and that is the most valuable thing to a child, is that exchange of time. Shoot, that changed my perspective drastically on things. You know, that is the most important thing.
100%, Brady, and I often say this is why I think it's really essential to go back to this reality of actual what, you know, being real is about, because, you know, I mean, how many times I always say this, you know, you everybody in their life, that whole 6 degrees of separation, everybody was going to know somebody who's died. And they're, you know, how many times, you know, everybody probably has been at a funeral. If you're very fortunate, if you haven't been at one, and you'll meet the same people, and they'll be like, they all have that same realization of like, oh, you know, why was I rushing to get the promotion? Why did I rush to go and get that car, the mortgage, the house? Oh, what was it all been for? I should have spent more time, like you said, all the things you just said. And they're in that moment, and they're being, you know, real, like you said, that real human, which is tend to have that real human contact with somebody. And then you go back, and I've lived this one many times. You go back 2-3 months time, you know, check them on Facebook, and they haven't changed a bit. And you think,
Yeah.
Like you said, when it really breaks down to, this is what I don't know how many more times. This is a really another murky water philosophical question. What is it in humans? We know the mortality of our time on this planet. not only the mortality that surrounds us, we should all be aware of, and I can understand why we do live in a paradigm where mortality is not talked about. That's why artists and people and authors and creative people, we're the ones with a stick poking at the herd and saying, you do know that we're all going to die. You do know that's okay. I understand that, but equally, every human being has that. Not only understanding of mortality, it's the other one. I mean, it's one of the things that people, they go on about, the latest 3D film or the latest this and the latest Star Wars movie or the latest attraction ride and what you think. Isn't the most amazing thing, and everybody knows this one, that at night time or whenever you go and put your head on that pillow, whatever you put your head on at night to sleep or daytime to sleep, whatever it may be, you'll close your eyes, you'll go into this other place, you maybe have some vague memories when you come out of it, but then you'll come back to exactly the same reality, and you'll know the same, the same things will be around you. And you think, how fortunate, how much of a great experience is that we've got that experience that we can keep waking up every day, and we have this ride, and we can look around and think, wow, I've got another day in this unbelievable, whatever it may be, whether it's a computer simulation, whether it's some chaotic universe, wherever it may be, we've got another day on this planet. And I think this is why it's always getting back to real ones, because it's not, like I say, when you hear, like I say, I'll give an example when I've seen people do that, but it's going to happen to you. It's going to happen. It's going to happen to you as an individual. It's going to happen to me as an individual. Sometimes, like, we've been through, me and you as individuals recently, loved ones going through suffering. When I've seen people in the last 2 weeks, and they've had literally days to live. And you think, when you hear, like, it all breaks down to this whole conversation about Brexit and all of this stuff, it's like, is any of this really important? All the things that we get, people getting frustrated and screaming about it, none of it's important. In fact, we've got another day, another chance to experience life and to basically make the life around you better for other people. And that's not about isms, that's just generally about all the things that are basically about human nature and us as human beings. We discussed this before, Brady, my man. I guarantee if you walked outside of your town today and you're walking down Rudisio and some guy's been hit in the high street by a car, people aren't going to walk by, man. People are going to gather around that human being and make sure he's all right, one way or the other. That's what we as humans do, and that's what we've got to focus on. And if people, and people go, oh, that's all innate to us. It's not innate to us. That's something we've all got to work on, because that's what I'm saying. If it was all innate to us, I wouldn't go to funerals and bump into the person 2 months later, and they would still be bothered about their Maserati or their Ferrari or their mortgage or what status they got in society. It does, mate. And it's like it's the old word, and it's not a word that's spoken a lot about in these in the world we live in. But it's cultivating virtue. And virtues are all the things that you can do as an individual to make yourself. And that is, to me, that's why I say it's an expression of nature, because once you do that, you bloom like a seed. And all these, and you start to do things, and you may live your life and you might not think, well, I haven't done anything. And you don't realize like you were saying before, all the people you've affected and the change, you don't even know. And I know, this is what I say to people. I know that. You put, every time you put a song out, Brady, on SoundCloud, okay, you don't know that's affecting. You don't know what person that they may have gone through a really shit night, and they've seen their partner die, and they stick on that tune, and they may be the only person that listens to it on SoundCloud, but that tune to them means so much. But if you hadn't have done that, then that will that connection with another human being will happen. And that's why I say these are all the things that we can all do. And then that's why I say I think that's why the future is all about. And that's why I think it's really essential that we do this and we do it properly. We allow the tools out there that allow human beings to create and express themselves. And that's why I think, that's why I was alluding to things earlier on, that's why it's important that, okay, an artwork, it's not really important whether it's completely finished. A film may not be important. You may go into a studio and rush a track out. Great, that's all part of the distractions and illusions. But when you're building fundamental building blocks about what are crucial to the human future, that to me is really, really getting down to, you can't rush these things, and they've got to be done properly. You don't just bang out an atom bomb and go, oh, okay, we'll give it to the first idiot that got. No, these are responsible decisions, and like that's to me the separation. Yeah, artwork and pieces of music, they're all distractions, but the fundamental ones, to me, are the most crucial ones that we have to really fundamentally get right, because it's not us, it's the future we rely on it. And it comes back down to what you were saying on, whether we as a human species Do we carry on? Because if we get this right, we've got a chance. If we don't, there's like you were alluding to earlier on, there's not much chance because there's a lot of things against us not making it to the next century.
Yeah. Yeah, and I hate to look at it that way because the preppers are like, see, I told you. And I'm like, well, yeah, but it hasn't happened yet, okay? I mean, that's good to hedge your bets and prep, but, you know, if we're talking about the kind of societal, global, systemic problems that you're worried about, your few guns and ammo and MREs and canned food probably aren't going to matter at that point. So what is going to matter is creating systems that do work, collaborating with people, creating, you know, to boil it down to a very simple thing, quit with this corporate food and start making more farmers markets, community gardens, grow food in your own freaking living room with an aquaponics tank, freaking just, you know, and bring it over to your neighbor. Your neighbor said, oh, well, I didn't have enough money to buy very many groceries, and I'm eating freaking cheese sandwiches for the next 2 weeks. Bring them some freaking tomatoes, you know? Freaking just, that's humanity. That's where we need to head, and it's not a direction a lot of people want to go because they're too complacent, fat, and happy, particularly here in the States, where people just want to go to the grocery store, grab their creepy-ass corporate food full of chemicals, cram it down their throat, and wonder why they have cancer. You know, it's like, really? Let's grow some food. Help me grow some food. Let's do a garden in our backyard with my neighbor. You know, that's it. And it also boils down to, unfortunately, because people are like, yeah, that's great and wonderful, but I've got to pay my bills, so I've got to work, and then I have a couple hours after work to do a garden after I'm exhausted after working all day. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. And they usually sit down and they watch TV. Okay, I'm done for the day. And that's unfortunate because the prime hours of most humans are spent working, doing something, quite frankly, that a robot or a computer could be doing very easily. And then a lot of people that moves into, oh, so you're into socialism? And I'm like, no, no, I'm not. I'm into making that freaking robot over there do it with a solar panel strapped to its back. That's free. You just have to build the damn thing. I'll help you build it if you just freaking shut up about socialism. Whatever.
Yeah, and that's I mean, that was yeah, exactly, isms. And this is one of the things about, I mean, we were alluding to this earlier on, Brady. I mean, this is going to happen. I mean, whether people, I love having discussions on it because I think the more times people have discussions about what is coming, it's better than not having a discussion. But the idea that this isn't going to happen, and the idea, to be honest, like you just said, I mean, beyond isms, as I said before, why any human being would fight for the right for another human being to go down a pit and dig out coal, or like you say, go and work in some. It's kind of like really. To me, it reminds me of, like, I bet there was people just 100 years ago, and that's what I'm saying, deliberately 100 years ago, who were probably going, well, actually, it would probably be better if those black people were out in the fields doing the fucking work for the, you know, it's the same shit, man. You know, there's some people that they I don't know what it is, they look at human beings and think, well, yeah, I want them to go and work in fields, and it's quite ironic because this is one of the things that really has gone on. I mean, it's one of the relates back to Brexit, because one of the things you said over here is one of the alludes to what I was saying earlier on. The reason we've got a lot of immigrants coming over here is because of isms and because of all this and that. But equally, it's because people over here, you've got kids who have been for years and years and years, all been encouraged to go to university. They obviously all leave university with degrees, and they're like, well, I'm not going to go out in the fields and pick the cabbages. But hey, some Polish guy or some Romanian guy or some guy from, you know, whatever, he'll come over and he'll work for that. He'll work for, you know, I mean, he's going to get paid to go and pick up, you know, a bunch of cabbages. That gets him a nice house back, you know, and he feeds his family and stuff like this. And it's that whole thing, because we've got this whole generation that's been bred of, like you just said then, has been separated from the realities of life. And they're like, well, no, food just comes from the supermarket. but this is, the trouble is that that's what I'm saying. it's that same echoes of slavery, because we're still getting human beings. We're shipping them from one part of the world into our fields to make our potatoes. So we've got nice potatoes that come in a nice clean bag and sit there, and it's ridiculous. And you think this could all be done, and we could all just turn our energy and our concentration levels. It's we wouldn't. I mean, how many? All you would need, how many intelligent human beings would you need to put in a situation, whether it's on a conversation like this over the internet or in a room together, or how long would it take in man hours or time wise to go, right, we're gonna solve the situation with distributing human beings to dig up food, we're going to solve wars. What is it we don't need war? These things could be easily solved out, but then, like you said, the reason they're not talked about isn't because there's the human beings who don't want that. This is the thing with all these isms. These people all generally want the same thing. They don't. There's very few people that want to go and kill everybody else. They just want to protect their little ideology and their tribe. That's human beings all over. Do you know what I mean? But there are equally, like you said, there are some people who love and they feed on it. I mean, why have we still got warfare in 2016?
Yeah.
So obviously, because there's some people on this planet, I would argue, who just love watching human beings being pushed out into machines and being killed for the sake of it. And it's nothing other than just that. There are some people, but we can only get rid of those people by separating them from money, and by basically us all waking up and going, no, we're not going to listen to your fear anymore. That's the only two things they can work on. They use fear to suck the money out of us, and by that money, they get human beings onto battlefields to shove other bits of metal into other human beings. And that is the bare reality of it. If you can separate them from money, and you can make people wake up and go, then all this just dissolves, which is needed, because it's ridiculous. We live in 2016 and we're still sending human beings out to other parts of the world to pick cabbages from a field, or to go and send to fight for a flag. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's modern day slavery. I mean, people argue that slavery is finally abolished, but it's like, okay, in some parts of the world, but those parts of the world they didn't abolish slavery. They exported it. We're still, there's systems of people who are working for wages that are just ridiculous to live on. It's not even acceptable in any type of reasonable ethical scenario. And if you want to talk about morality and humanity, no, those people who are sending people off to war and making people pick food in fields in other countries to ship it to rich countries, it's another form of, I don't feel like doing it, make them do it so I can sit on my butt and not do it. When in actuality, we have all the tools for everyone to freaking grow their own food. I mean, hell, you want to talk about a governmental structure with benefits and food stamps and subsidies and all these government subsidized food programs and stuff. I mean, okay, you want to think about all that money that you gave to a family to go to a grocery store and give a corporation that money, which ultimately you just subsidized that corporate company. You didn't subsidize the family. If you want to subsidize the family and actually help them specifically, go buy them a freaking farm bot. Buy a farm bot. It costs $1,000. That's a whole hell of a lot less money than you're going to be giving that family for food all year long, and they'll be able to grow their own damn food. You can have like periodic reports that they have to go file on how much produce they're producing, and if they're producing too much, they can go bring it to their freaking neighbor. If you just gave every freaking person who's low income a freaking farm bot, ta-da, problem solved. Grow your own food, and it's your responsibility now. And if you fuck it up, then that's your problem. But hey, we will send you parts if you need it. We'll send you a 3D printer so you can print your own parts.
But this is what I'm talking about, Brady. This is what I'm trying to say. We're living in this, we're transforming from an era of information, all these things. We're entering a new era. But this is a great point where we in this very conversation, we have the ability to do things. I mean, we'd have to. Everybody's got the ability to go down. I don't know, whatever it may be, go and buy a packet of seeds and just sow them. I mean, this is the thing. We're all surrounded, but wherever you are, whether you're in a city, you can go and find some land and go and put an apple tree there, go and put some tomato plants there. You know, this is one of the things, all up and down the railways of the United Kingdom, there's tomato plants growing everywhere. Well, and other sorts of plants, but you know, because obviously it's all chucked out of the disposal system of the train.
Yeah.
So these, you know, seeds leaving the compost. This is the thing. Nature doesn't need anything more than just this. And this is the point. You don't need to go, oh, no, what we're going to do, we're going to form a committee and we're going to work out how we can get some resources, and we're going to work out through the committee how we're going to spend that resources and give these people, and who deserves a farmer. No, everybody can go out and plant their own seeds. Everybody's got some space. Everybody. This is the thing. This is what I mean about enabling human beings. You don't need permission. You don't. That's the very essence of chaos. You don't need permission. No, nobody. You don't need my permission. Certainly not my permission. You don't need Brady McKenna's permission. You don't need Hillary Clinton's permission. You don't need Donald Trump's permission. You don't need the euro. You don't need anybody's permission. You can do it yourself. And that's the thing. That's the real, like, wow. You don't need anybody. You can go and do it. You can grow your own food. You can do anything you want to do, and nobody's stopping you. The only things that are stopping you is what we were discussing earlier on. Is that philosophy of the resonance you want to live in, how you want to see your mind, what kind of frequency do you want to sit? Do you want to sit in that one of fear and think, oh, if I do this, I'll do it? It's what I was saying earlier on. Oh, if I leave the herd, how much more? This is why, to me now, that whole leaving the herd mentality is like, fair enough. In the 80s, yeah, great. In the 90s, yeah, great. In the 2000s, maybe, but not now, because there's enough media to go, wow, do you know what? Actually, the most exciting part, the part where really people are living in, isn't in the herd. It's those people on the edges right now. Look at all the people that inspire. And this is the thing, it's not just like it was, like I say, 30 years ago. We were all inspired by musicians who were on the edge. We're like, oh, we want to be like them. We want to live their lifestyles. Now that's everybody. We're all, and that's the point. And this is what we've got to get. Anybody has got, they've got the, you know, everybody in their life, whether they listen to this or not, or whatever, everybody has got that point in their mind. They go, do I want to live in the resonance of fear, where I'm, you know, I don't want to leave them, I don't want to be a part of, I'm not in the herd, so I'll go whatever the majority feels, whether I feel it or not, and that means I won't say anything, I won't voice my opinion, I'll just put my head down and just trundle through life, and oh shit, and now I'm 90, you know, now I'm in my 80s, and oh shit, where did my life go? Or do you want to be that person that goes, I'll design, you know, I'll be the hero of my life. I'll do whatever I want to do in my life, and, you know, get yourself out of that resonance. Because as you would be a testament to, and I can definitely testament to, you don't need to follow anybody else. Once you shake yourself out of that frequency, it's like giving up coffee or sugar or cigarettes. You don't ever want to go back. And that's the great thing. It's not like I'm tempted to sit down and think, oh, do you know what I haven't done for weeks? Do you know what I haven't done for years? I haven't sat down and watched Game of Thrones. I'm going to sit down and watch X Factor. That's no desire in my mind now. That frequency's gone. That is the true expression of the wake-up moment. And that's the true power that every individual has. And that everybody can do that. And it's a decision. Everybody's making that conscious decision. Do I want to live in that frequency of fear, or do I want to not be living that frequency of fear? And that's everybody's decision. And the people go, oh, I can't make that decision. Well, you're basically living in a frequency of fear, which you're not choosing to wake up from. And that is your decision. And what do we do about those people, as you said, Brady? Stop evangelizing to them, because you can't do anything with them. They're making that choice. You can just live your life and say, hey, this is what it's like not to live in your frequency.
I've learned that with people with substance abuse issues, is generally, if they don't want to change themselves, absolutely no amount of help or coaxing or preaching or bitching, complaining, or pissing and moaning will ever help that person. It doesn't matter what you do. They will not ever change or care about anything you have to say until they make the personal decision to change themselves. It works the same way with other things. It's not just substance abuse. Substance abuse just happens to be a shitty life choice. You know, there's other worse life choices, which is what we're talking about, which is just as bad, in my opinion. It's you wasting your life and wasting your time, and quite frankly, wasting others, because other people do tend to reach out and help. I mean, I'm one of those people that tends to reach out and help people when I probably shouldn't, and I'm always, you know, kicked in the ass for doing it, generally by me giving too much and not, you know, knowing when I should just give up. And that's the unfortunate factor, and that's part of evangelizing, like I was talking about, is you're giving, you're trying to like teach a man to fish, you know? It's that scenario, and it, you know, you can teach a man to fish, but only if he wants to learn how to fish, not if he could care less. You can't put, you can put a bait line, hook, line, sinker, bait, fishing pole, and set him in front of a lake and tell him if you put your lure in there with bait on it, you will pull food out and you can just eat it for free and you will survive and you'll be great forever. But if he doesn't want to, he never will. So,
but that's exactly that's. I've got a very personal expression of that I've actually seen. I mean, I once saw literally, I saw this guy, and he literally, the old phrase about leading the horse to water. He dragged this horse. This was when I was in Argentina. He dragged it down to this pozo to get this horse to drink. This horse was like panting and sweating and everything. And he got to the water, this horse, and he literally got it right down, and he literally put the head of the horse in the water, and this horse would not drink. And it was like, all you got to do is just, you know, this horse was just gaping for a drink. And he just wouldn't even stick his, and it was like he just said, and it's like, hey, but what do you do? Do you spend it was almost like a Zen moment for me. I thought, what does that guy do? Does he waste his energy in trying to force that horse to drink? Or maybe, and if you want to get really Zen about it, is that horse saying, hey, I don't want to drink water. Let me make my decision. Maybe I want to die of thirst. Don't be so arrogant to try to force me to water. And this is one of the things about, like you say, life itself. There's no point, and I've learned this one along with, you know, it's a hard lesson for me to learn, because there's all that, you have that, particularly when you're in you know, a certain part of your life, and you feel like, I want to go and change the world, and I want to, like you said, evangelize to, and it's a hard lesson to learn of, like, no, like you said, sitting back and going, okay, sometimes it's just literally me wasting my own time and energy. And then as you get older, you realize, like, oh, how many people around you are just trying to suck your energy, suck your time, and before you know it, you're like, whoa. Instead of being a productive conversation, like you said, a 3 hour or a couple of hours that have been of like it will be. I'll leave this conversation and I'll have thoughts that resonate through my mind all week. And I'll be like, oh yeah, let's spark that off, and it'll spark all sorts of conversations in my own mind off. Whereas, like you said, you could have two hours of sitting in front of the TV or 2 hours in front of somebody else. And you think, what the, you know, and that's what. And that's what, but this is responsible. I'm saying this is a responsibility that falls down to every single individual. We have the choice. You can sit and talk to somebody and argue the toss about, you know, is, you know, the Philadelphia, I don't know, Philadelphia Quakers better than the San Francisco Oilers or something. Forgive my knowledge of American football, but, you know, you can spend 2 hours arguing about, you know, which quarterback's the best or who's given the most defensive lines and stuff. And you think, is that really important? And this is the decisions that every human being has got. They've gone out and they've decided to have that conversation because they want to stick in the herd mentality. Whereas that person could decide at the pub, do you know what I'm going to do? Next time the person talks about, you know, which is the best quarterback or who's the best basketball player or have you seen the latest X film? Think, no, do you know what I'm going to talk about? Let's talk about philosophy. Let's talk about, you know, dragging a horse to water in the Zen moment about. That's the decision that every human being has the right to do. And sometimes you're not going to get, you know, you're not going to bump into people in the general public and they're going to sit down to you and say, oh, let's talk about philosophy. But hey, you have the responsibility as a human being to initiate those conversations. And that is a huge, powerful thing that, like you said, no isms, no walls, no factions, no corporations, no governments, nothing. It breaks down to nothing can stop that. And if they ever have the power to stop that, then we're all doomed. This is the one thing we've all got as individuals. We all got the right to speak up and have these conversations. And to me, we're at the age and the times in our life where right now we can't just say, oh well, I can't, I'm not going to have that conversation. It's imperative we have these conversations, because so I look at it now, every time I don't have a conversation like that with somebody else, I have a conversation. If they don't have it with me, I walk on and I walk on to the next person and we'll have the conversation. But I'm not going to stop and I'm not going to relent and have it and suppress it anymore, because it's essential we don't, because this isn't just a luxury we can have anymore. This is real life. And you know, all the times that people go, oh well, this is just a parlor talk, and we can, oh no, We've got to have these conversations as human beings to human beings, human beings to human beings to human beings, and it's essential because as you were saying earlier on, Brady, and this is one of the things that people really need to be aware of, life moves on. Do you know what I mean? You can sit around and go, oh, well, let's have this nice little conversation about freedom. And all the time, there's an innovation going on. There's a new product coming. There's something else that's just obliterating another job. Something else, and you can suppress, like we're saying, like this whole conversation. You can suppress this and go, "Oh, we'll deal with that when it comes around to it." Well, okay, yeah, you can do, and that's been the human condition for quite a long time. We've gone, "Oh, well, we'll deal with things when they pop up," or shouldn't we, really, as human, and having this great power in our heads, go, should we try to foresee a few things, try to build a few solutions, try to see our ways out of this, maybe try to avert that happening? And this is where all of us have that decision. Do we have the conversation about basketball, or do we have this conversation about this? And we can all do that. And that's within every single being. It doesn't cost you any money. It's a decision you make. And that's the point, because it all boils down to choice and decision. And if we don't allow that to happen, then we even the idea of choice and having that goes away. And before you know it, we're not saying anything at all. And we know where that leads. And this is why it's crucial that these decisions are had. And it's more crucial, and we have more of a weight in our responsibility on our shoulders. Us who are more, I'm not trying to say this, but us who are more having this conversation, we have more weight on our shoulders to have more of this conversation with people, because it's crucial we do. Because if we don't, what we're going to do, we're just going to sit by and let everyone just go, well, hey, it's your fault. Hey, it's your fault. No, we have to go up and prick every little white elephant, every little belief and ideology, whether it's a prepper, whether it's Hillary Clinton, whatever it is. Every time we see an ideology, we've got to go and prick it and say, no, stop it, stop it, stop it.
Well, that's another thing, though, is there's a number of different issues with society, and that's a huge one. And when we're talking about like leading a horse to water or teaching a man to fish, you're wasting your own personal energy you could be spending doing something else, and it gets to a point where you have to learn hard lessons about really choosing your own personal battles wisely. And when it gets to that point, really I see that mentality and that old way of thinking and the isms and ideological systems. It's a dead end path. I mean, it only leads to just problems, nasty social and political and economic problems. And I think there's finally an alternative that is developing, but it's in its infancy. I mean, the internet was the beginning of it, but a lot of it has to do with communication. But the problem is we have a lot of issues with censorship still. I mean, Wikipedia, I mean, there's been police departments that got in trouble for editing the Wikipedia article during the Black Lives Matter protests here, and it's trying to change what was happening in the protests in favor of the police department. And that right there is a perfect example of what's really just wrong with things. And we're finally at a point where we have immutable data, immutable blockchains, immutable money that is going to change that. But there's a huge pushback for it right now, because there's people in this world that do not want to see immutable data. I mean, people like say, oh, well, that's not politically correct. We got to remove that from Google and remove that from Facebook and remove that from Twitter. And fortunately, the days of Twitter, Google, and Facebook dominating is going to end if they continue that, because people are going to get fed up with not being able to have an open conversation. I don't care if the conversation is nasty. I don't care if what the person is saying is freaking wrong and sick and disgusting. It boils down to, we need to know what that person's philosophy is, and they're actually trying to go out of their way to explain it to you, but you blocked it, censored it, and tried to like sugarcoat it for society, when like that person is a sicko and tried to let you know what their philosophy was, and then you blocked it and covered it up. It's like, really? You don't want the world to know what that person has to say and think? They're a sicko. You should probably let them speak. I mean, if it gets to the point where they're running large regimes, I mean, we might want to get to a point where we, bag and gag the guy and pull him off stage because he's starting to rally the troops. But that's different. We're talking about Facebook and having a conversation, or Google and having a conversation. or Twitter or any other social media that we're talking about. I do like the fact that live streaming is starting to really take off with a lot of platforms. I think that's going to be their saving grace with this whole bullshit censorship crap. Because, okay, you want to censor things? Fine. Everyone needs to start live streaming. And if you want to censor that as well because of, oh, I had a song playing in the background that's copywritten, so you're going to pull this YouTube video? Okay, well, made safe, here we come. Ethereum, here we come. Library of Alexandria and IPFS, here we come. You know, there's a solution to the problem, but it's in its infancy. It's frustrating when you see this major problem and the solution is in its infancy. You're like, okay, I got to sit and be patient and not rush things. And that's the thing. A lot of people with the DAO specifically, they want immutable contracts and social contracts and social systems and decentralized organizations that are immutable and uncensorable and just running on distributed networks, which is great, which is why they were probably rushing. They're desperate to have something like that in existence that works. But at the same time, it's coming. We all just have to be patient. We have to keep pushing that ball forward one step at a time every day. Keep pushing it back. If it rolls back, keep pushing it forward, and we got to keep moving, keep working, keep building, and whatever skills and abilities we have as individuals, we need to put those to use and keep going. I don't care how hard it is. We only got 100 years before things, well, for lack of a better term, suck.
Yeah, and equally is one of the things that I kind of really sort of like take it right back to the beginning of this conversation. That what's been witnessed in this whole events in the last 2 weeks over here is that we are witnessing change. You know, things. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Beyond all the philosophical discussions we have, we are seeing things that are fundamentally, and this is why I'm trying to say we're at this moment where, you know, like I say, like you was mentioning earlier, things can fall one way or the other, and this is why I really, you know, like I say, being real about these conversations, because I think it is essential that human beings one-to-one have these conversations and as many public forums as get it out there as possible, because it is breaking down to, if we don't, and it's you know, it's something I wrote a long time ago. It's, you know, evil doesn't just happen by evil men doing evil acts. It's by good men turning their backs and watching it happen. And that's been a mistake through history, you know. And that's why I'm saying it's essential that these conversations are, because I've seen it here in the last week since the election. I've just seen like, whoa. If some of these voices were just said 50, 60 years ago, it would have never been dreamt. This is like listening to some of the Nazis here, and, you know, some of you know, their ideas. And you think, no, we've got to. We can't just turn away anymore. And that's why I'm saying it really is essential, because we're seeing this all over the world right now. Because what we're seeing is, we're seeing this metamorphosis moment. We are seeing what we've been talking about. We've discussed this many times over many years. You know, we're seeing this transformation of us as a species, and technology. That's what we would be both aware of. You know, we can't just say, okay, what we're going to do now, we're all going to put our heads in the sand, we're all going to think about things, we're all going to sit there and try to flag for flag, and technology will stop because we're not thinking about it. This stuff is going to happen. You know, it doesn't matter whether you don't want to think about it, you don't want to put your heads around it, and you want to, like you say, or you want to design sort of dystopian nightmare where it's all going to be us versus the monkeys in some sort of zombie apocalypse. Doesn't matter. Stuff's going to happen. You know, the AI, the inventions happen because we live on a big rock. We're not just living in one part of the world. And this is one of the things that you've seen, particularly around this Brexit argument, is just like this whole, do you know, there is a whole world, and it's so ridiculous. Like, people think, well, if you're not in Europe, there's nothing out. There's no world we live in. And I see the thing when we're talking to a lot, you know, you in America and stuff, it's like there is other things on this planet other than America. And to the idea to go, well, because we're going to do all these things in America, that all this innovation is going to stop, and these things are not. Of course they're not. This is why I think it's essential that these conversations happen, because if we don't have these conversations, then we all get silenced, ideologies start to reign, and before you know it, the Second World War is example. Technology rises, and suddenly you've got a nuclear weapon in the hands of the warlords, because we're in a war state of frequency. And last time it was nuclear weapons. Man, the next time around, we like that. That's why I I really try to sort of be real about this conversation because, you know, it's all right having these conversations, but I'm very aware that you're seeing central power breaking down, but in those vacuums, it's either filled by our voices or it's filled by the isms. And the reason that the voids get filled by the isms because they're very attractive, because they give you security and all the things you were saying. But equally, for all that attraction, it's like the old one in the Bible. The road to hell is wide and full of bright lights. The path to wisdom is a very narrow path. But it's a hard path, like you were saying earlier on. And that's what's difficult for us. It's difficult for us to say to people, oh, well, the future isn't going to be so easy. It means you're not going down to the supermarket. And if you really want to be... Now, these are essential things for us to make. But as I said before, these are only difficult conversations for a few of us in the world, because this is one of the things I always try to overview it all. On this rock, 5-6 of us understand what I've just been describing completely. They live off the land. They understand. So it's only for us in. But that's the essence of change. You know, and this is what we're seeing with Brexit in the last 2 weeks. We've gone like, oh, well, the European Union, that's going to last forever. No. Just like the Napoleonic era didn't last forever, just like the British Empire didn't last forever. Empires rise and empires fall, people. And that's one of the most important things that we've all forgotten, that things rise and they fall. And they rise and they fall. And what's the only common one you see in all that? Central power never works. That's the only common one. It doesn't work. And that's... If we're not having these conversations, and this is one of the things I see in Europe, we're going to Brexit, this is what I'm saying. Don't you think that's going to happen in your part of the world, man? Where it's just going to become more and more and more and more and more. We think, wow, are we even allowed to have these conversations? And the reason they want me allowed to have these conversations is that, you know, where it just become whistles or not this, that, and the other, and it goes back to what we were describing before, is this suppression that happens. Suppression only happens because people don't stick their umbrella on the parapet and go, no. What right have you got to tell me that I can't talk about that? And that's where it falls on our shoulders, because if we turn silent, we allow this evil to happen around us, man. And that's sort of like a doomy note to, you know, this conversation on. But this is the reality of things, because not everybody's having this conversation. And there are a lot of people, as we've described, that they're quite happy to fall behind a flag and an ism and this, that, and the other, all thinking, and I'm sure majority of them think they're doing the greatest thing. It's like the old thing. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, if we do this and we do that, and it's all great, 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 great. And before you know it, bang. And that's why...
I mean, that's the problem with a lot of this is you always get behind an ism, and it re-centralizes and then grows, falls, and you start back over. It's the same story over and over and over again throughout human history with different costumes every single time. It's all it is. It's freaking ridiculous. And I don't know. I'm to a point now where I like having these conversations, but at the same time, you feel like, God, I hope somebody's listening, and I hope somebody actually wants to maybe start having these conversations as well, because you get it. You almost get into that, okay, well, should I just start buying guns and prepping material? Because no one else is talking to me about this. No one else is having this conversation. But here's what gives me hope more than anything else, to be honest, when I start feeling like that and I start losing faith in humanity, I guess is the best way to put it, is I see, well, earlier I talked about it. We have, throughout the centuries, we had three major power structures, and that's religion, government, and financial. And the fact of the matter is there's finally a fourth one, and it's just now emerging, and it's the social power structure. And it's finally very prominent. It's very, very vocal. It's full of tons of trolls that are just looking for the opposition side of the conversation at any given moment, which I hate trolls as much as the next guy, but I think it's hilarious that it's always a devil's advocate situation no matter what you say on the internet, which is great. That's great for a philosophical conversation, as long as you're not getting mad at the troll and you're actually like taking it with a grain of salt and looking at it. Maybe they have some merit to what they're saying. You never know. You gotta talk.
It's exactly got to talk, and it's. I mean, this is one of the differences that maybe we in Europe, and that's why I love talking to people in in your part of the world. Is that that's what America was based upon. It was based on that very fundamental things like you you've got to base this stuff that you've got to talk. If we forget how to communicate with each other, then like you say, separation happens because. And I know it's completely true in your part of the world, and this is one of the things where we're talking about the whole, shifting your frequency and trying to shift, how you think about things. Is you've got to realise that the card of divide and conquer has been a card. I mean, you talk about for centuries. I'd argue for millennium, but the divide and conquer card has been played on humans over and over. And this is the thing. It's kind of like we all. This is the point, Brady. I mean, it's all right. This is what I'm trying to say about us resting this moment we have now. This moment we live in right now. This great time that we have is a as I was saying before, humans have always messed this point up. They've got to this reset moment and gone down the same path. Well, isn't that a responsibility? Okay, however hard it is for us, maybe it does fall down to a few disparate people like us to have these conversations, but what can we do with that? We know that we've seen this fall through history. We understand it. How can we break that chain? How can we break that chain? Because once it is broken, as you said before, it's broken fundamentally. We see this in nature. Once things break, once cells break, they break. That's what fundamentally happens at a deep cellular level, and we're just the expression of that. So how can we break that thing? Because once we do break that, then we don't have to be in this reset moment. I don't want to be living in a world where 40 years down the line, I'm sitting watching kids having podcasts and going, oh, what can we do about the world? We're still having, and I think, no, this is the point. We've got the knowledge. We've got, we can do this. And that's why I'm saying that's why there's a great deal of responsibility on our shoulders, because if we don't get this right and we refuse to have these conversations and try to wrestle these deep questions, which they are, it means swimming out to the murky waters. Oh yeah, man, we've got to swim out to the dark, murky waters of how we really think. But hey, to me, it's swimming in those dark, murky waters is the very essence of life, and that's what we should all be doing, because they're not that's the very essence of life. Because if you look at it, we just always say the other way around. What are we? We're a bunch of cells living on a rock that is in the middle of a universe that that's just empty and void, and we're just tumbling through it. And all our Milky Way systems all being floating one way, and it's all just floating towards. If they, what I mean, this is the whole thing. That's the real reality of things. The rest of what we're discussing tonight, everything we're discussing, is all about opinions and working out what is all about distractions. What are those things that are holding you back from the true reality of things? And the true reality of things is just that we're just on this, like you said, all of it is just illusions. Time's an illusion. You could argue everything around us is just an illusion. The only thing we've got in that's true is that we know we've got this moment now. This conversation is right now is real. Now we could argue on a philosophical level where we're actually both, but right now we know we've got that connection. In this moment right now, we know and that's a great thing we've got. And this is what I think, like you said before, it really inspires me that I'm seeing more and more people utilizing these tools. And that's why I say to people, these are things we can all do. Tell people about these conversations, spread them around, encourage people to have these conversations, encourage people to do their own podcasts. It's all about encouraging human beings to get up and say, oh, actually, I'm going to make use of my time, if you want to call it time. I'm going to make use of this great experience I've got, because it goes back down to what we said before. And this is why it's really, really boils down to it. And this is why you're a musician. That's why I sit and draw art and I write, and we both write and we both create, because we both basically know that we've got this great beauty of having this existence of this of time on this rock. It's not going to be forever, and we haven't been here forever. We've got a short little sliver, and it's what we do with it. And I'm maybe that's I think the thing that drives me a lot, and I'm sure I'm seeing it a lot. And I was saying you can see it in the echoes of what happened in Brexit. I think more and more people are going, do you know what? I'm actually understanding that. I'm actually realizing that, I only got one running. It's what we can do with it, what we can make the best of this, right? Because do you know what I mean? I think this is the thing. We all know that we don't want to be that old man sitting in a rocking chair and thinking, oh, what? Because as I was always told when I was a kid, you don't ever get to your old age and regret what you don't do. You regret, so you only regret what you don't do. You never regret what you do. That's that. And this is what I'm saying. This reflection has been shown throughout history. That's why art's always been a reflection throughout history. That's why from the first human putting his handprint across the wall to show that we've got mortality, right through to every piece of artwork, right through to every piece of written oral stuff that's been through, history, stories that are told through generations and generations. It's all the same thing. It's all that pointing at the fact of like, make this time that you got on this rock as pleasant as you can, because we're a long time dead. Whatever you want to think about it, we've got this one time right now, and why not enjoy this one moment right now? This is the point. Why go out and spend negative energy? Why go out and express fear and hatred towards other human beings? Why? We've only got this one time, isn't it? Sure, just go out and try to be, and live that life, because if you do, that's how you. This is what I'm trying to say. It's the whole thing. It's not about giving. It's not about receiving in life. It's about what you give. Do you know what I mean? That's why, like, that's what you learn about when you have a child. When you're a child, the great thing you love about Christmas is what you're going to get. Oh, I can't wait till Christmas Day. What am I going to get? What presents am I going to get? And that's when you've got a childlike mind thinking. When you go through that and you become an adult mind thinking, you like the most joyous thing about Christmas is seeing the joy in other people when you've given them something.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's what I'm trying to say. These are all things that, like I'm saying, this isn't. You'd have to go to some ism to find out this knowledge. You haven't got to go and read some ancient book. You haven't got to go and spend all your money and go and give it to some priest or guru. Everybody knows this, and it's only utilizing things that we all know inherently in us. And this is what I'm saying. It doesn't cost anything. It's just something we can all do. If we can, it's like anything else, like in nature itself, when it's positive and negative reinforcements. And once you start living and expressing and being like with the conversation we're having about, it becomes a positive reinforcement to other people around. Whereas much as if you're a negative, and I mean, there's another murky, dark discussion we could have. I mean, I personally think the negative is a very powerful element. You put one negative person in a room, and the whole atmosphere goes. And that's why, again, it's all about what we're putting out. We're putting out the positive, and we're putting out the negative, and it's very. All of us can make that decision, and that's why I think it is down to all of us. Is down to think, because we all have that decision. Are we, am I in this conversation? Am I going to sit there and just slaughter you to pieces? Am I going to sit there and just pull you apart? Am I going to sit in this conversation with you, Brady, and spend 2 hours talking about the quarterback for the LA Rangers? Am I going to sit there and talk about Hillary versus Trump? No, we're going to talk about real things, and hopefully to push us on to, because this is what human beings are about. And that, to me, is something that doesn't cost anything, and every human being can be, whatever language we are, whatever it is. And this is the very essence of what I think we're seeing in the world around us, and it's down to us as people who do think about these things to basically spread that as much as possible, because we're, like I said before, man, the voices of fear and the voices of the negative, man, they're everywhere. They've got loud they've got loud microphones. They're on TV. They've got budgets of millions. Us few people, we haven't got very much, but equally, the power of the few and what we can do. That's what I'm saying. I mean, how much of human history and momentum was behind slavery, and it disappeared by a few people, and that's the power of what we can do. And this is what.
It was exported because of a few people. They were like, "Oh, you don't want it. You don't want it in your little nationalist corner. Okay, we'll export it out of sight, out of mind." No, I'm not trying to down talk it, but I am upset that modern day slavery is still very prominent, and the only reason rich countries live the quality of life they do is because of modern day slavery, and it's bullshit, because that's another thing that people do not talk about. That's one thing, like, if I even mention it to people, like, there's like, whoa, that's too heavy, let's change the subject. And I'm like, really? That's one of the number one problems with the world today, in my opinion. But okay, let's talk about I don't know, some musician's butt or something. It's like, okay, fine. So, but see, I gotta say, life is people, ants, and we even talk like this on sessions. It's probably one of my favorite times of the month, because I get to talk about these things that no one wants to talk about. and it's recorded and stuck on YouTube forever, so everyone can watch it. And here, as soon as Made Safe launches, I expect you're going to download your entire video library and get it on Made Safe, right? Awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, can you do me a favor and just send me all your favorite conversations you've had on Life as People, and just shoot I'd say the top 10 videos in conversations you had, which is probably going to be a hard one. I know. I'm not trying to make you choose favorites here, but because they're all great, you know, conversations. It's hard to pick a favorite, but ones where you just felt like there was just a very powerful point in the conversation. Can you just send me like the top 10?
Yeah, no worries. No worries. I can do that at all. Or we could, I was just thinking then, in the essence of this very conversation, we could always put that out via various social medias, because this does go out for various social medias and platforms. Put it out to a vote of people and say to them, well, what were the 10 ones that they find most inspiring? Because,
you know, let's do that. Yeah, let's do that. You know what? Let's do this. Well, I'll throw a session hat or something and a session's dedication to somebody if they'll actually sit down and spend some time to do that. I'll do something for the person. We'll celebrate in their name if someone will just sit down and do it. Anybody,
exactly, man.
I don't care.
Well, perfect, man. Look, I mean, we've been at this for like 2.5 hours, man, and I sort of feel we kind of sort of going around in circles and repeating ourselves over and over again. I mean, this is anything particularly about Brexit. I mean, we kind of scratched upon it, but this is like many things, man. This is like all conversations. This is another one of, again, about what I've particularly learned in this media paradigm that I'd heard in the last week is everything we live in the world we live in, everything's got to be dissected and put in little boxes, and that's done. No, real life isn't like this. Real life is, you know, things develop, conversations that go on. We don't just put things in a box and that's left. And we've now discussed Brexit. That's done. The next week we shall discuss. No, you move. That's the point, and that's life itself. But I think on the general ones, we kind of hopefully through this conversation covered all the kind of general queries that you may have had on a very early basis. And like I said, these are going to be continual conversations because I think one of the things you're going to see. What we saw over here, you're going to see that all in November coming over there. You're going to see the same Project Fear. You're going to see the same arguments. I mean, these distractions never stop, man. They love playing this distraction over and over and over again.
Well, but, you know, the main reason I really wanted to talk to you about Brexit specifically was it's fueled by a very nationalist mentality. People are wanting to really, you know, I mean, and you see it in the United States as well, and I'm seeing it more and more, and a lot of people are like, oh, my government and my state and my political party and my this, my that, my ism this, ism that, whatever you want to call it. It's all kind of breaking down because a lot of people don't agree, and the Brexit is a perfect example of that because it was very close to a 50-50 vote, okay? Like, that doesn't show a consensus of any kind. That shows people didn't agree. They didn't agree on the situation. And that's really what it boils down to and why I like decentralization, because if people don't agree, well, the network forks into two new ones, and congratulations, now you're dealing with two completely different situations, and if you don't agree, you go over there, and if you don't agree, you go over there, and now build. If you agree with your system so much, make it work, build. And that's why I like software decentralization, and I really do see it as a solution to what we're going to see, and Brexit is just the beginning. Well, it's not even the beginning, it's a process that has been happening all over the world for a very, very long time. And we're seeing it in the Middle East. We're seeing it in the United States. We're seeing it in Europe. We're seeing it in Asian countries. We're seeing it all over the world. It's everywhere. And it's going to accelerate. And when people see that there is a new social power structure that's developing, and it is an alternative. It has its own political system that's developing. It has its own financial system that's developing, and who knows? It might even have its own form of social contracts and law involved that doesn't involve lawyers and extorting people for money and weird politically invested motivations, and actually does have the actual social power structures ideals in mind. And we'll see. But I appreciate your perspective and your words on all this, and it was enlightening, and I'm learning more every day. I mean, this is a big world, and I feel like I've only scratched the surface.
Well, I mean, I just to sort of like maybe just give an overview on all this. I mean, what we're seeing and what we're witnessing is at these times of, I mean, this is what I mean about how at times it needs to take a step back and really think about it. I mean, I don't think there's many people, if we had spoken 2-3 weeks ago, that said, okay, 2 weeks down the line, by beginning of July, your prime minister would have been resigned. The opposition, apart from basically the leader, all his party don't believe in him. I mean, 172 against 40 don't even believe in the, about a vote of confidence in him. So you got basically the opposition gone. We would have. What I'm trying to say is, I don't know. It's just part of where we live here, and I think I think just generally one of the illusions that the West has been given all the time is that we're always told that, oh, okay, we see rises and falls of empires and republics, and it's always outside. It's always somewhere else. It's like, another African country falls, and they slaughter their leader on the, hanging from a pole or something, and that's there. And that was there said, and that's one of the things I've always sort of said about being in Europe, because I'm always more close to it. Because, I in my lifetime I saw what happened in Kosovo and stuff, and I think, well, that was just in Europe. That wasn't some far African place. Just even. But what I'm trying to say, the events of the last 2 weeks, and this is kind of the thing I really want to wrap this whole Brexit conversation is about. And this is one of the things I think every human being, if they listen to this now or in the future, wherever, should understand is that nothing is permanent. We live in a world of impermanence, and like I said before, we become this almost brainwashed into this idea like, well, we're in a permanent structure, the European Union and United Kingdom, and this is how things are. And what you see in the last 2 weeks is all this, and these things can happen in an instant. Nobody, as I'm saying, I've got to bring it right back. Nobody would have if you put all your money in your mortgage, whatever money you had, and said, 3 weeks time, nobody would have done that. It would have been a ridiculously scripted. People would go, oh yeah, of course it would have done. What, you mean no, and that's the thing. But these things happen. And this is the thing that I think really, as we've discussed and we've known for many, through many conversations, and you're starting to see this. We talk about these things happen. I've been saying for ages, like, this stuff's going to happen, and you start to see it happen, and you think, yep, it does happen. And this is the thing. Because you're in a certain country, you've got a certain flag over your shoulder. You think it's going to. It doesn't. Human nature happens. Systems rise, systems fall. Regions fall, empires rise and empires fall. This is the nature of human existence on this planet, and it's even true right now in 2016. And this is the thing, people, whether that gives you hope, whether you've got fear, whatever it may be, it's just that realization of like, wow, actually, like you said before, which is apparently the whole essence of this conversation has been ever since I started Life is People. You don't need any permission. There is no one in control. This is just one ride that we just all got to make the best of while we're on it. There is no architect. There is no central thingy. And as much as anyone wants to tell you that, it's all no, like you said, nobody can control anything. And that's one of the things we're waking up from. That's one of the things that's gone in Brexit. People are going, oh, actually, there is no control. There is no and this is what we're going through. And this is the thing. What I'm trying to say is, fundamental things can happen really quickly, and it doesn't just happen on the other side of the world. And that's one of the things about Brexit, is that it's just yet more proof, and I've seen it and I've witnessed it, and that's what I'm saying. People go, oh, well, that's Argentina. That happens in those third world parts of the world. What would you expect? And they give you a million reasons why that would never happen in the West. Bang. Yeah. Happens in Great Britain. And this is the thing. This is what I'm trying. I think this is the essence I want to really kind of make the whole this conversation about is life itself is impermanent, and life is, and that's that's the one thing where it links philosophy with the element of being human itself, is its impermanence. And we all know that. We all get old. We're all subject to that thing, as you said before, time. We're all gonna fade away, you know, our hair, that's part of life, you know, and that's the impermanence of life. We all know that. You don't need a book or a guru or anyone to tell you that, but it's that essence. If you just live with that, that changes everything. And I think that's the very fundamental, how you can shake yourself from that frequency of fear into a frequency of love, which is going, wow, I've just, like we would, like you were saying earlier on, we've had this whole discussion about, it's just living that moment and living with love. And those, if you can just do those two things, then hey, if everybody could just do that, we'd all live in a better world.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. And I think people are waking up. It's just it's like shaking someone who's really sleepy, trying to wake them up. Come on, wake up! I know you're waking up. You're just a little groggy. Come on, let's just get you there. We need, I don't know, we need a cup of coffee for humanity, and I don't know what that's going to be, but I think it's coming. The coffee's being brewed right now. We're roasting the beans. We haven't actually made the cup yet.
Or exactly, or the analogy I like to use, Brady, and maybe it's relating to this painting behind. I mean, where you want to grade where humanity is on the sides of that wave, where we're at the very end of it, it's all black. We're up here. That wave is coming, man. This is all coming. This whole thing, churn of life, is going to happen. And you can sit at the end of the wave and think it's all flat and calm, and I don't want to look out that far ahead, but it's coming. This is what I'm trying to say. Where it's like you say, where it's a cup of coffee, but it's more like that. We're all in this churn of life, and that's the very essence of it. It's going to happen. It'll slip us all around, and that's the thing. The real big thing about it, nature, the universe, it doesn't give a toss. Doesn't win nothing special. We're just a blink in an eye of we have our little 60, 70, 80 years, and that's it. We're gone. That's the real churn of life. And that's, to me, that's the inspiring thing. All of us look out the window and think, wow, we've got to enjoy this, as we're saying, moment, enjoy the now. Well, man, without going around in circles and circles and circles, man, it's been great speaking to you tonight, man. And it's been, like I say, I all week, I know that I'll have parts of this conversation that will spark ideas, because this is the very essence of this very conversation, is to have ideas that spark away and percolate away, to use the coffee analogy, all week, all month, you know what I mean? So, well, as before, it's been great catching up with you as always, Brady, and well, from for me over here in Scotland and all over from good old US of A. And well, happy, ironically, man, happy 4th of July for tomorrow, man.
Yeah.
See, we're talking about independence and all that crap, man. So, well, like I say, for me over in Scotland and all over the USA, man, it's life is people.